So one presenter that we're really pleased and excited to be introducing today is Professor Mina Fazel, and she'll be presenting on her research from over 27,000 young people. It's so important that we really hear this data and understand what children and young people are saying when we're thinking about the support that we're providing for youth mental health. And so now I'll hand over to Professor Mina Fazel.
Thank you very much. I'm Mina Fazel. I run with an incredible team the OxWell School Survey, where we ask children across the region about their mental health and wellbeing. So what I'm going to do is share some of the latest findings with you. So these are the schools that participated in 2021. So 30,000 kids responded from Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Berkshire, and then over 11,000 in the Liverpool area as well. So 180 schools, and these are children from years 5 to 13 or aged 8 to 18. And we ask a whole range of questions, so it's about 350 questions. We look at kind of primary and secondary school. What we really like is that every school that participates gets their own report of it at the end of August, so a couple of months after they participate. And also this platform called the Load Seeker platform that I'll tell you about at the end is a place where they can access all the data for their own school. So because we ask so many questions, it might be that we're not going to report to the schools on the specific questions schools are interested in, but schools can go in, for example, I'm interested in the boys in year 9 and bullying, what's going on? You can go into the data and see that, for example. So what we also like about it is that it's completed at school, so we get the whole school participating. So it's not just the kids that choose to participate because their parents are a bit more organised than I am and fill out the consent forms. You know, this is an opportunity to ensure that we get as much representation as possible. And as I said, it's a massive team effort. So the next slide will tell you the areas that we look at in that. So we ask about general well-being with a whole load of questionnaires looking at kind of general well-being, exercise, sleep. Then we look at kind of the more at-risk populations. So we look at those that are telling us they're depressed and anxious. We ask quite a lot about substance misuse. We've brought in 2021 internet gaming and some of those behaviours. And then at the end we're able to look at the kind of populations of concern as well. So those that are saying they're self-harming and being abused. So what do we know about mental health and wellbeing this year? Well, this is the results from the WEMWEBs, which is the wellbeing measure, and this is kind of consistent across year groups. So we've got year 5 to 13 here. I sort of want you to ignore years 11 and 13 because the numbers were small because most of them were taking examinations. But what you see is that by the time they're getting to year 12, the group in red are saying that they've got low well-being, and that's like 50% of them are reporting that they're coming out low. So this is massively concerning. About 22% at the end of primary school, but that's going up. And this is consistent with all studies looking at mental health and well-being in adolescent populations, that the older the children are getting, the more it seems they're suffering from their mental health problems. And we look at something called the RCATS, which is a specific questionnaire looking at anxiety and depression. And in that, so that's a clinical measure, CAM services use this measure. You can see that actually depression and anxiety does seem to be pretty consistent across these age groups. Around kind of 18 to 26% are saying that they have anxiety, are falling in what we would call the clinical thresholds for anxiety and depression. We asked about exercise. We're quite interested in this. And so we kind of asked, compared to the first lockdown, how much exercise you're doing, because there's been a lot of concerns about changing patterns of behaviour, more sedentary behaviour, so many after-school clubs closing, so much limitation in what schools are even able to offer as well. And actually, the green is more and the red is less. And that's somewhat heartening, I think, that over half really are saying that they're doing more exercise, but there are kind of about a third that are saying that they are doing less. This is what we were quite interested in, was social media and gaming. So we asked about playing games on your phone, playing games on electronic devices, playing games or computer games on a console, and being on social media. Now, the red group is 4 hours a day or more, and the green group is less than 1 hour. Now, we need to take a bit of a deeper dive into this data, because quite a lot of young people didn't answer this question, because you could choose which questions to answer, and it might have been that a lot of them had their time had run out anyway when they got to this question, so we need to understand that. But of those who answered, and well over half answered this question, you can see that like 48% of those that answered are saying they're spending 4 hours or more a day playing games on a computer or games console. So, 37% are saying that they're spending 4 hours a day or more on social media. So this is kind of dramatic changes in the way people are interacting. And obviously the social space is becoming much more a kind of blend between online and in person, but we really need to understand what that means. So we ask about loneliness. How often do you feel lonely? And for these kind of, often and sometimes, so sometimes is in orange and often is in red. And we're seeing kind of 24-25% of year 12s are saying that they often feel lonely. And if you take kind of those that are saying sometimes and often, it's well over half across all the year groups are saying they're feeling lonely. And we're particularly interested in this because I think thinking about the pandemic, thinking about how things have changed, thinking about just kind of social interactions as a whole, what does it mean, what's happened, and what does loneliness actually mean when it comes to well-being and drivers of depression, possibly of self-harm. And we're doing some analyses looking at that actually it might be, if you're a school, that the most powerful mental health intervention you can do is to improve social connectedness amongst your students. You don't need to get school counsellors in necessarily. It might be that you improve the opportunities there are for young people at school to interact with each other and build what we call authentic social networks. We asked how much do you identify with your school community? We're quite interested in this sense of belonging, sense of community. And the pink is disagree and the blue is agree. So this is male and female. Other, but we're getting kind of, almost a quarter of males and females saying that they don't identify with their school community. And that's the group I think is very concerning for me, because it might be what we call a low-hanging fruit. It might be actually one of the simplest interventions we can make is doing things to help young people feel better in touch and aligned and building meaningful relationships with their peers. So we asked about worries. So we asked, how much do you worry about certain things? And these are kind of 4 slides now that show you about different worries. So we asked about their appearance, and the first half is their gender mix, male, female, other, and then by year group. And the dark red is extremely worried, and the orange, I'm sorry you might be able to see that well, is worried. But what this shows is that for females, 75% are falling in the worried or extremely worried, or half are coming extremely worried. But even for the males, half of them are coming out as worried or extremely worried about their appearance. We asked about, is it how, doing well at school, how worried are you? Understandable concerns with so much disruptions and so much emphasis on academic achievement. And again, similar kind of numbers about being worried about doing well at school. And then we asked about the climate and the environment and what's being termed more and more as eco-anxiety. And about a quarter of males and females are saying that they're extremely worried about the environment, which is probably a correct thing for them to be worried about. We've had some comments on social media saying it actually should be abnormal if young people are not worried about the environment. So there's kind of major concern that we need to start really acknowledging and really starting to act, because actually, it's very worrying. And I think what we know in adolescence is you become more aware of justice and injustice. You become more aware of the impact of your behaviour and the behaviours of others on those that might be more deprived. And so actually this is a really important part of adolescence, and for us, those that work with young people, to find ways to help channel some of those concerns into positive action, which might help. And we also ask about kind of the major concerns that is ripping through society, as well as rippling through society, of austerity and socioeconomic deprivation and the major stresses, especially brought about by the the events of the last 5 years politically and obviously with the pandemic. And we're seeing kind of quite large numbers of young people extremely worried about not having enough money to pay for living costs. So this is around kind of 10%, which is very high. So just a few more slides now, just to give you a taste of what young people have been telling us. So we asked about sleep, and we asked kind of, how often are you too worried to sleep? So that's quite a high hurdle, to be too worried to fall asleep. I don't know, I think it's a high hurdle because I'm always so tired, I just fall asleep immediately. But so this is kind of like, you know, if I'm too worried to sleep, something majorly is affecting me. And so part of the kind of change in how you sleep is developmentally appropriate. You know, we know that adolescence, there is a natural shift in the sleep-wake cycle, but you know, we're getting kind of 37% of year 12s saying that they're often too worried to sleep. That is a massive, massive number. And even in the younger years, we're getting around a third, which is still, I think, you know, unacceptably high numbers, and we need to understand what's going on. And then we ask kind of in the hour before you intend to sleep, how often do you go on screens? How often do you use social media? So there's basically, as we would anticipate, quite a lot of it. Now, it's part of a kind of bedtime routine for lots of young people to check in with their friends maybe, but it might be that for others it's a much more stimulating activity. You just watch one TikTok and then look at 17,000 others, or what, you know, we just need to understand what impact these changes in how young people are interacting with the world are impacting on other aspects of their well-being. So we asked a bit about safety, and I'll just present a few of those slides here. So we asked about self-harm. We asked a lot about kind of exposure to other abuses as well this year that we've added to the survey. And in 2021, 6.7% of our respondents, so we only asked this from those years 8 to 13, so we don't ask the children younger than 12 basically, but 6.7% are saying that they have self-harmed within the last month, which I think is a very high number. And we ask about how safe they feel at home, and there is a kind of a group of around 7 to 8% who are saying that they're feeling unsafe at home as well. We ask about bullying and exposure to bullying, and this is quite heartening. You know, well, it's still quite a lot, but bullying, as kind of a lot of the data shows, goes down as you get older through the school. So it's quite prominent in the primary school populations, but it goes down. But there's still kind of, you know, around the 5 to 10% mark in the older year groups, but that is still an unacceptable number. And it feels like children in the older year groups, though, are much less tolerant of abuse, much more concerned about how their school is dealing with abuse. So, for example, in the next slide, we ask, how well do you think your school deals with bullying? So if you remember the previous slide, most of the bullying, the large numbers are happening in years 5 and 6, but they're actually only 15 to 20% of those year groups are thinking the school deals badly with bullying. Yet, if you look at years 9 and 10, which actually not that many were reporting they're being bullied, but most of them think their schools deal badly with it. So that must be something about adolescence as well, about how you start reinterpreting the world around you, being critical of those in authority, thinking actually, gosh, you know, I remember when that happened to me, that was dealt with badly. So just reevaluating, being more aware of the young people who might be targeted, and thinking that the approaches and responses are not appropriate. I don't know, there might be a whole range of reasons, but I find that very, very interesting, but that doesn't reflect the incidence. And we ask a lot about how young people would like to access support and further support. And so over half think that it's quite easy to access mental health support, and we have this year asked so many questions about whether they find it helpful, what type of support they think they want, what are the barriers to accessing support. So hopefully over the year we'll be able to find ways to analyse this and let services know and schools know. But for example, we ask who provides support in your school, and so, you know, a lot of young people, for those of you that are in the teaching professions, you know, are pointing to 25% say their head of year, 23% saying their class teacher are the people who offer their mental health support, and their likely first port of call. And so not to underestimate the important role that everybody in the system plays, because it might be that you're the only person that young person would ever approach in order to get further help and support. So I'll just end with a few slides on COVID-19. So we were able to ask about vaccination. So we asked about the COVID vaccine, how willing are you to have a vaccination? And actually, this was in June 2021, and 50% said that they were willing, 37% said they were undecided, and about 13% said they would opt out actively. But what was quite interesting about this was that for the sixth formers, if you show the next slide, 78% were willing, which was reflective of the adult population at that time, with the others undecided and opting out. But if you go younger, for those who are 13 years old, half were willing, many more were undecided. When you get to the younger populations, about a third were willing, but actually half were undecided. And so that's really forced us to talk a lot with policymakers about the importance of actually getting information out there, because they're not saying they don't want the vaccination. They're rightly saying, I don't know, I need to talk to my parents maybe, or whatever it is, but the information is not being tailored to young populations. Policymakers were rightly targeting the 60 years and older to get vaccinated, but now that the vaccination drives are going to younger age groups, what are we doing to help those that are undecided learn more? Very interesting, we asked about cognitions as well. So we said, compared to before the first lockdown, how easy have you found it to concentrate? We asked us also about memory and attention, but I'll just share the concentration one with you for now. And here, compared to before the pandemic, are you finding it more difficult, the same, or easier? And look at this. Look how many young people are saying they're finding it more difficult now to concentrate than they did before. And we're trying to link that to previous COVID infections maybe, or kind of attitudes towards learning or methods of learning, but that is a serious issue that I think comes as no surprise to those of you in the classrooms who are managing, quite complicated environments where young people who haven't been in structured settings are coming back in. It's just been, I think, a very difficult time, but the young kids themselves are saying how difficult it is for them as well. So I'd just like to end and say, that our reflection so far is that the wellbeing data is worrying. There are high rates of young people saying that they're not doing so well. They have a wealth of worries about their appearance, about doing well at school, about the environment. We're thinking that actually we need to think a lot more about sleep, so we want to plan a sleep week where we just create a whole range of resources for different ages, different teachers, different classes, different assemblies, for families, for teachers, and we're planning to do this hopefully around March to see whether we can really just help a lot of young people, because sleep seems to be something that gets affected quite early in a whole range of difficulties. Still quite worrying levels of bullying and abuse, and we have to start to understand a lot more about online screen and behaviour use. So, just to go on a little bit more, we've been trying to also learn about how to share our findings, so we've been just creating things on Insta, for example, about vaccinations. There's a lot of the hesitancy driven by needle phobia, which is very common in young people. We've been creating posters for schools, so these are some examples that the schools that were involved at OxWell got, but if you're interested we could also share with you, just to get the data out to young people. We're trying to get onto TikTok and ask influencers, so there are a few examples of it. I won't share that now. And then for those of you in OxWell schools, this is an example of what the Load Seeker platform will do. So you get this fully interactive system where schools are able to go in, be able to pull up different reports on different questions. You don't know which other schools are involved, but you get to see where your school ranks in relation to others. So my God, 20% of kids are saying they're bullied. How does that compare? It might be that that's quite good, you don't know, but they give you these kind of traffic light systems where you're able to do it. And then you're also able to pull up through the Load Seeker the results of your school in a whole range, because we're just really interested in everyone having access to the data. We don't want to be researchers, take your data away and just kind of never share it with you. So with schools get it, we're trying to get young people to get the data as well. So keep in touch, and thank you very much.
Mina, thank you for that presentation. It was really insightful. I've just got a few questions coming out of what we were talking about. And as a researcher, it's always really hard, isn't it, to look at cause and effect and understand what the correlation is. But I think it's really interesting you've got the large number of people showing the low well-being scores.
I know.
You've got the high amount of time that people are engaging online. You've got an increase in loneliness, an increase in the use of digital technology. Are these things linked? What can we say about cause and effect in that world?
So with our data, we can't say much about cause because it's what we call cross-sectional. So we can just look at what's associated with whatever, with other measures. So we need to talk to young people as well, because actually that's kind of going to help us understand and enrich our understanding of it. But we can't ignore the fact that these are major things going on and major changes. And, you know, I do think that we need to be quite concerned about time spent on social media, yet reports of loneliness. But actually, and we've got some interesting data on self-harm, for example, and how the kids, when they're at that most distressed in a way, don't want to go online, don't turn to online resources. Actually, they want to turn to humans. And so, you know, I think the reality is there's so many good things about social media. I learned so much about the world through it. So it's about how do we understand the role it plays? How do we help young people be more measured in their, their engagement with it? And how do we ensure that it doesn't replace real social interactions, if that's what you're able to do, because that might be enriching in different ways.
And so I suppose the message for teachers and parents, like so many other things, it's about balance. It's about getting the right balance. And I suppose many of us feel that 4 hours a day gaming might not be the right amount of time, and that might be something to look at. So it's just, there's no way we can go stop doing it. That's not going to be the right message. Like, don't use your phone for the 5 hours before you go to sleep. It's just not going to be a message that's ever going to work. So it's about how do we tailor it? How do we make it acceptable? But I suppose we also have to just learn exactly where is it best and worst used, so that we could say to young people, look, these types of activities, it seems, will impact on your sleep. So if you're concerned about your sleep, then try not to do those activities then. Do them at this time. So it's about finding the right language as well. Very good. You talked about school community identification and about a quarter of youngsters not really identifying strongly with their school, which is the community, really.
The community,
of their time. And you were saying that might be a bit of a low-hanging fruit, something to think about. Do you have any top tips for any school leaders listening to this talk about how they can help that group of non-engaged?
So I think what I'm saying to a lot of school leaders is just have confidence in your instincts about what you think is right as a school leader, because you're getting messages from parents and from kind of Department of Education that you have to get academic achievement up and you need to get grades up, but actually just trust your instincts. Most teachers and school leaders know they need a sense of community, know that these kind of unstructured times or the more creative opportunities the school offers that isn't necessarily assessed are important. And what I say is just stick to that, do it. Make sure that you maintain all of these opportunities, that you place an expectation amongst your kids that so I've got a child at a school where she's informed me that they have to do 3 extracurricular activities that aren't sport. And no one's measuring it and no one's saying yes, no, but actually just being told that has just, as a parent or as a teacher, you need to go, it doesn't matter if you don't get your homework done tonight, it's more important that you've gone and done X or Y, so I think it's just having confidence in, there's very few teachers I meet who think it's a good idea for kids not to build that kind of whole range of interactions with other people and learn new skills, especially ones that aren't they're not good at.
We need to give ourselves permission to have fun, to do the non-measured.
And school leaders, just don't worry about because there's a small minority of parents who will be upset at that stuff, but the vast majority, who are usually quiet, are delighted that you take that approach.
And all parents want their children to be happy. That's the prime. You speak to any parent, what do you want out of life? I want my child to be happy. So 50% of children will say that they're finding it hard to access mental health support, or that they were finding it hard or medium hard. What more can we do to get the message out? How can we engage with young people? Help exists. I mean, we know that help exists. and yet a lot of people are not finding it. So what more can we do?
Well, there are two aspects to that. One is not every single difficulty needs mental health support officially. So I think that there is a bit of a knee-jerk, someone's distressed and crying in class, oh, let's get the school counsellor, oh no, whatever. I think we need to be a little bit measured. We need to step back and look. We need to see, has the child shown any other features of concern? Have they stopped engaging with a peer group? Are they, not attending as well? Whatever. So I think we also just need to be a little bit nuanced. There's a bit of a knee-jerk panic right now. So we don't need to panic. It's kind of fluctuations in mood are normal. A few crises are normal, and kind of
especially in teenage years.
And actually, if you've got that kind of extracurricular offer, you've built your self-esteem doing other things, that might be all you need just to be reassured. Don't worry, I agree, that's rubbish. Let's try it, whatever. So that's the first thing. I think we've got a knee-jerk response now. Everyone has to be referred the minute they're a little bit upset, and I'm like, no, they don't. And then when it comes to the offer, we need to just see. So we've got data, and we need to start analysing it, what the kids are saying they want, And there was one school we were looking at with some with the local authority where we asked who provides mental health support at your school, and in this year 9 group, 95% said their head of year. So we're like, let's go and speak to that head of year. Like,
what are they doing so well?
What are they doing? Yeah. That actually the whole year is pretty uniform. So we just need to understand about what young people seem to want and need, and how we make that easier.
Yeah.
And there are examples of good practice, but a lot of young people are saying it's not accessible. So we need to be thinking about it, and that's my area of interest. So watch this space.
Okay. So last question from me. I think two of the things that came out with a focus on physical activity and sleep.
Yes.
I know that from a well-being point of view, those are two of the most important factors, aren't they? Getting good sleep and being active can make such a positive impact on your mental health and well-being. So I just wondered if there was anything more you wanted to say about it.
Yeah, it seems like consistent, and actually anyone listening, it's the same for adult populations too. So I keep looking at the data and hoping physical activity doesn't come out there, but it does. So whether you're a kid or whether you're an adult, if you actually want to maintain your well-being, it seems that you can't get away from aerobic activity. Breaking out a sweat helps in a whole range of factors, not just your physical health but your mental well-being. And sleep, I think we need to think about. I think we need to work harder. We really want to do a lot more, I think, at the university to understand about this and to work with schools to support. We need to work with families, with young people, with teachers. We need to find this is a lifelong skill that young people need to learn.
Yeah. And we do know that physical activity and sleep are linked as well. So if you do more physical activity, you'll sleep better and your well-being's better, and then you'll do more, So there's that virtuous circle.
Yeah. But, it's not as easy for some young people to engage in sport. So, it's about making sure there's an offer that then is acceptable. For some kids, have certain items of clothing they want to wear or don't want to expose their bodies in certain ways. But what sports can they engage in? How are we making it easy? I don't think we are. I don't think there are great options. So if you're a boy that plays football,
easy.
It seems relatively easy. Often for other groups who aren't boys who like to play football, we have to find out what other types of sport there are, because there are thousands of sports, so we need to be a little bit more creative as well.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. There's been a masterclass. I think that 30,000 data point survey is an amazing resource. Yeah. So, thank you for highlighting that today. Final question, anyone listening to this who hasn't been involved, who would like to get involved, how do they add their school or their cohort into this?
Yeah, so, firstly, thank you very much to all the schools that participated, because it's a massive school effort and investment for which we are incredibly grateful, and the young people who did spend all that time answering questions. So these have been run through Buckinghamshire, Berkshire East and Berkshire West and Oxfordshire local authorities. So every single school in those authorities were invited to participate. So we will do it again, hopefully in February 2023. Right. So we're going to move it away from the horrific summer term to February. So not going to do it next year, except for maybe in special schools. We're going to move to February 2023. Just, write to us directly if you want to be involved then. But really it's to look out in the emails, because the local authorities will invite you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Professor Mina Fazel, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and joining in. And no matter what your feedback is, please do join the online conversation using the hashtag YouthInMindTalksOxon.